Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Okay, that was a little slow. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number 784 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. And I think it's a bit of a rainy day here at the Beaver Lodge after we got a little bit of snow. So I have a feeling that rain is going to wash a little bit of that snow away. And we'll have to start again with that nice little dusting here that we had. But for a couple of days, there was just this little lovely dusting of white, and not too cold and not icy and all that kind of stuff. So it was actually rather pleasant for a first little taste of winter, even though we're not officially in winter yet. But a little bit of rain. Hope that it gets to dry before it gets too cold, so we don't have a little bit of an ice rink everywhere we go, because we're in that little temperature range around 4.5 degrees Celsius, and then with the wind chill and all that kind of stuff, it feels like 0 -1. So yeah, that's around that weather where things can get a little slippy, let's say. But hey, it's another beautiful day here at the Beaver Lodge. At least indoors. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And as you can hear in my voice, I am feeling much better, less dry, less scratchy, because I finally got some sleep. I had some naps yesterday and fell asleep, and last night I went to bed at a decent hour, and instead of putting my head on the pillow and my mind starting to race, because it was anniversary day yesterday, and my beaver sweetie took me to an anniversary dinner after a disastrous curling match. Oh my God. The other team scored 7 in one end, because everything went wrong for us. we were making good shots, but they kept on bouncing and ended up in the wrong spot. And in curling, just like in pool, sometimes it's not the shot you make, it's the shot you leave. And yeah, we got our butts wiped. Or spanked, I should say, more than wiped. So yeah, our matches are supposed to last 8 ends. We bowed out quickly after, because we weren't going to save that. We made a valiant attempt, but it wasn't going to happen for us. But after that, like this little time with both teams and sharing a drink after the match. We went out for dinner because we had a 5 p.m. match, so it was we knew we'd be able to do both. And my Beaver sweetie wanted to come and watch me play to cheer me on and support me. And unfortunately, we laid a big old goose egg for him. So. But that's the game sometimes. But we went out for a lovely dinner at my favorite restaurant that's owned by uh, a woman named Jackie. Hello. And she makes wonderful, wonderful Thai food, which is some of my favorite. So we went and we had a lovely little feast and then came back home and then took a little bit of a few moments to prepare the show. I had it mostly prepared beforehand because I wanted the evening to focus on us, but did a little couple touch-ups and then we went to bed at a respectable hour and my head hit the pillow and I fell asleep and I slept through almost all the way through. Ah, it feels so good. So yeah, I look a little brighter. Fewer bags. The Louis Vuittons is just the carry-ons today rather than the whole trunk. And like I said, my voice is better, and I'm actually just um, like feeling better all over in my body. I'm less tight and constricted and sort of pulled in this way. So I'm sort of just larger and more, not larger, but just more expanded. Or I don't know what the word is, but I just feel like there's more room here, and I'm not being constricted. So I'm sitting up a little taller. I have more energy, all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm on the mend. I have 1 day left of antibiotics, which is today. Apparently, the type that we have is when I was reading the pamphlet that comes with the medication, because this was one I didn't take before, said, yeah, it's a short course, but don't worry, this one stays in the body for a while and keeps working for several days after you finish the dose. So still got a couple of days left in my recovery to fully feel like myself. But by far, this is the most like my usual self I have felt since last Thursday. So I am going to run with it. I feel good. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. I knew that I would. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Knew that I would. Get it? All right, kids and cubs. How's your mental health today? I hope you're feeling good. I hope you're feeling as good as I am. I hope you're feeling as good as I am right now. Uh, so, yeah, it was a night of love. It was a night of snuggles, and I am here, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So, uh, let's get into it. We're going to talk. We'll talk a little bit from Remembrance Day. We'll have there's a little segment here from CBC recap of the day that we'll look at, and we may to touch on a few other things maybe later on the show, and then get into the meat of it. Um, and then, if we have time, we might touch on a couple of other topics as well. But yesterday, um, let's put it this way: you remember, um, not too long ago, I think it was not sure. I think it might have been Bob Fife, but I may be wrong. I don't think no, it's not Bob Fife. It was someone else that had made the comment that conservatives are not so much politicians as they are storytellers, right? Pierre loves to weave a good little narrative, right? So, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, and Canada is leading the way, and it's all the fault of Justin Trudeau. I mean, Mark Carney. I mean, Justin Trudeau. I mean, whoever it is, some liberal somewhere. Ah, yeah, those liberals, they're so terrible, and everything's broken. Oh, immigration is broken, and food prices are broken, and the healthcare system is broken, and passports are broken, and crime is broken. Everything is broken, except Pierre, according to Pierre, of course. And it's all the liberals' damn fault. And oh my God, isn't it so terrible? And the RC and Pierre are despicable and everything. And they love a good story. Problem is that all of their stories come from the fiction section. We're not talking autobiographies here, right? And they um, somehow expect us to buy them. And there is a significant portion of the population who, well, like Mulder, just want to believe. And they take these stories and they run with them. And, they make it part of their identity, and they go about and they repeating these stories that are not anchored in reality. Well, yesterday they came out with a doozy of a story. Mm, they put a lot of work into this one. And they expect us to believe that there's a place somewhere on the space time continuum, some galaxy, some dimension, some realm in which fair minded, reasonable, thinking Canadians who would like governance that is serious and competent and professional, they expect us to believe that there exists some plane somewhere in which that story could remotely be true. I think you could tell by my voice and the setup that the shorter version of all of that is the conservatives served us up a big bag of bullshit. Yep. Big bag or big bowl of, yep. Just morning bowl of bullshit with a nice milk on it, a little sprinkle of brown sugar, you know, maybe some raisins. They expect us to eat that up. Um, Now, there is one little thing, however, that happened. Um, Conservatives like to um, wrap their stories around one little sort of kernel or nugget of truth and then just go from there. Um, Sometimes they're just outright lies, but sometimes if they can find a little nugget of truth, they weave it around there and then they go, see, and then they go off and they create something that's just fantastical, right? And the chief fabulist, Pierre Poilièvre, of course, doesn't seem to be anywhere around to tell that story. It's all coming from different ways and different sources and different means. And then Pierre's out there talking, because I mean, he's never met a camera he doesn't like, and he's the mouth that won't shut up. But he's not talking about this. He's letting everybody else talk about this. Um, so we have some story time for you on the show today, which will be rather interesting. So, before we get into that, though, let's go into a little bit with Remembrance Day because there is a little bit of a recap of what has gone on over the course of the day. And we wanted to bring that to you. And again, today, Kits and Cubs, the computer is being really, really um, not finicky, capricious with me because there's a video I wanted you to show, but there were ads on the video before. And while I was doing the intro, I was running the video to go through the ads. And for some reason, the video did not do that. So now I have to stretch for a series of 3 ads in a row as the thing sets up. So thanks again, computer. for your assist. Okay, but we roll with it. Um, of course, Veterans Day. Thousands of veterans, armed forces members, and Canadians braved the weather in Ottawa. Wasn't I don't know how terrible it was in Ottawa. I mean, it wasn't that bad here overall. We were supposed to get a lot of snow yesterday, and finally it didn't come here, so maybe it hit over there. But yeah, um, we'll just go into it. It's we have several minutes here. It's about a close to a 9-minute piece, but it's a recap from CBC yesterday. Um, uh, Nobody does Veterans. I keep on saying Veterans Day. Remembrance Day coverage. I've been reading too much U.S. news just before going on air this morning to try to see if there was any other stuff that I had to pick up today, and I've been reading the other word. But here in Canada, it's Remembrance Day. So I'm just going to stop talking now because clearly it's not working out. And I'm just going to roll the tape because a good queen knows when to quit when they're ahead. So here you go, kids and cubs.
Canadians are honoring the service and sacrifice today of veterans and members of our armed forces. Remembrance Day ceremonies are being held in cities, towns, and villages in every province and territory. The main ceremony has just concluded at the National War Memorial in Ottawa. We want to share some of the sights and sounds from there. We are joined now by our chief correspondent, Adrian Arsenault, who led our coverage of the national ceremony in Ottawa today. So, Adrian, it was a moving day, a special day in Ottawa, just like it is each and every year. I'm hoping that you can take us through some of the highlights, though, and some of what stood out to you as you watched the commemoration unfold.
Oh, hi, Hillary. Absolutely. It's special every year, and yet it's somehow different every year, even though the ceremony itself is almost precisely the same. There's always a different sort of character to the day, and I think, you know, any recollections have to begin with the veterans. I mean, we are talking about the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, and it's cold out here, and who should be out here all wrapped up but raring to go, but several veterans. 103, Ed Stafford is 104. He was in Toronto. Ernie Friesen is out here. He is also over 100. And in at least one case, what struck me about one of the vets, Ernie Friesen, is that this is the first time he's been to the ceremony. And you hear him talk, and he sounds like a little kid again. And you ask, you know, Ashley asked him who he's thinking of, and they're all thinking of their buddies. They're all thinking of who they were as teenagers, as young men. You know, we see them as old men now, and they just talk about who they were as young people, and it's that continuity and those stories that resonate every year, and also the fact, Hillary, that we keep learning more and more. I mean, a few years ago we started talking more vigorously about the women who served, the code breakers, the likes of Elsa Lassard, who's no longer here. We're talking more and not enough, but a bit more about the Indigenous veterans and the reality that some of the hardest days they had were not necessarily just those days in war, but when they came home and realized they weren't perceived as equal anymore. that they were perceived as more equal on the battlefield, but then they couldn't get served in bars or taverns back here at home. So it's just a, I think what sticks with me on this day is how much work there is to do, how much of an act remembrance is, what it asks of us, and also how determined people are to give it.
How determined they are to give it. And like you're saying, despite the fact that it's a cold, wintry day in Ottawa. We can see the snow there behind you on the National War Memorial. I saw it a few moments ago on the Peace Tower as well in Ottawa. Did that impact today's ceremony at all?
You know, in some ways, there are things you didn't see because of it. The CF-18s, the Hornets, they couldn't do the flyover. We did see one Black Hawk helicopter. That was an RCMP Black Hawk helicopter. It sort of represents the protection of the border currently. So it's affected what you don't see. There's this lovely thing at the Canadian War Museum. There is a headstone of the tomb of the unknown soldier that is positioned in such a way that at the 11th hour and the 11th day of the 11th month, there is a beam of light that will illuminate that headstone. Well, the sun waited until after 11 o'clock to emerge, but still there was a little bit more light. So yes, it affected it because of what you didn't see, but the streets were still pretty thick here. If you saw people laying down their poppies at the end, that went on for a good 45 minutes after the end of the service. No one was going anywhere. And again, it's the very least we can do is to physically show up for people who have given everything for the protection of this country we love.
And always so special then, of course, to see both the old but then the young as well, who, like you say, do continue to show up at the least that we can all do, like you're saying there, Adrian. One of this year's special guests, as always, would be this year's National Silver Cross Mother. This year, it is Nancy Payne from Ontario. She laid a wreath today in honor of all Canadian mothers who have lost sons and daughters to war as well. We've seen bits of your moving interview with her. Can you tell us a little bit more about her?
Oh, Nancy's fantastic. You know, Nancy welcomes you into her home with hugs and offers of cups of tea, and there are pictures everywhere of her sons, Randy and Chris. It was Randy, Corporal Randy Payne, who she was laying a wreath for in particular today as a National Silver Cross Mother. She was nervous about being here, so having a little sense of her, I was nervous for her, but she said that she knew that Randy would be saying, "Come on, Mom. You know, you got to do it. You can do it." And she knew that was sort of jet fuel for her to be there today. She did a fantastic job. This is a big ask to be the National Silver Cross Mother, because it's not simply what we see is the laying of the wreath, but what we don't see is that they spend a year connecting and dealing with other families and working with them and giving speeches. That is a lot. And, you know, she lost her son in 2006, so she has lived alongside that loss and alongside that grief for a long time. And so having these conversations again, you know, you see it puts a smile on her face, because she talks about how cheeky Randy was, what a charming man he was, how much fun he was, but also it just, you know, that middle of the night phone call that must be the worst moment in a parent's life ever. It gets relived again. So it takes a lot of strength to do this. She did it with grace, as all these Silver Cross mothers are. They are an incredible group of people who are in a club they don't want to be in.
And of course, we're all grateful, not just to her, Adrian, but to her son as well, who, like you were just made the ultimate sacrifice nearly 20 years ago. Okay, Adrian, good to speak with you. We do appreciate all of this, all of the coverage. Thank you. That was CBC News Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
And there you have it, kits and cubs. A little bit of a taste of what happened for Remembrance Day in Ottawa, the ceremonies, in case you didn't get to watch them yesterday. So a little short synopsis. There's a couple of other little bits of news. One that I saw this morning that has me wanting to find out more. This is according to Murray Brewster, of course, who is the reporter from CBC who tends to bring us stuff about the military. And it says here, the new federal budget, if it passes, will change the way disability benefits are calculated, and that has the country's military veterans worried that they'll face a less generous system in the future. The fiscal plan tabled by Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne on November 4th proposes to modify the indexing formula so that it is calculated solely on the basis of the Consumer Price Index, CPI, or cost of living. The change would come into effect on January 1st, 2027. Let's see. Up until this point, the benefits annual increase has been calculated using either the CPI or the average of a basket of public service salaries, whichever is greater. It is an important, generous distinction in the system which veterans successfully lobbied for in the 1980s. Prime Minister Mark Carney's Liberal government will have to amend legislation in order to take the system back to what it was more than 40 years ago. Veterans Affairs Minister Jill McKnight acknowledged on Tuesday, following the annual Remembrance Day service in Ottawa, that changes are on the way. Quote, what we're doing is making an adjustment to bring it in line with many other services and benefits that are offered and bringing it in line across government for consistency, McKnight told CBC News in an interview. She emphasized that the government is not withdrawing or canceling any benefits, just realigning the system to ensure consistency. McKnight was repeatedly asked whether that means veterans will receive less than they might have under the current either-or system of benefit increases. The minister said it's difficult to know. Quote, each individual veteran has unique experiences, time, and service release, so it'll depend on each individual circumstance, said McKnight, who also emphasized the budget's investment of more than $180 million in improving the benefits delivery system. I'm not sure how that answer particularly applies here, because if this is about disability benefits, so I want to make it clear that this is not about veterans benefits specifically. This is about overall disability benefits that apply to everyone, whether one's a veteran or not. Um, if you're changing the way that things are indexed from one, if you have the choice of one or the other, and you give the more generous of the two, and then you make it one, and the one that you choose is the one that's likely to be the least generous of the two, uh, I don't think any of these other circumstances affect how a single percentage by which the total disability benefit is increased or indexed applies or affects. It affects everyone the same way, regardless of their circumstances. So I'm not understanding that answer here on this. But we'll keep on going through the article here. Veterans advocates, however, aren't as positive in their assessment. Over the longer term, said Sean Bruya, a former Canadian Forces captain and intelligence officer, and a longtime advocate for veterans benefits. He's a very familiar name if you follow this file. Very well spoken, knows the file like the back of his hand. The change will make a dramatic difference in how veterans with disabilities are compensated for their sacrifice to Canada. Broya, who advocates for the rights of disabled veterans, said since January 2005, the CPI has increased about 52%, but veteran disability pensions have risen 70% in line with federal public service salaries. Oh, so this is okay. This is specifically veteran disability pensions then, and not disability pensions for everyone as a whole? Because if that's the case, the article is not clear about that in the beginning. Okay, I may have misspoken. Let's keep going here. The difference for individuals over time could amount to thousands of dollars, he said. Well, yeah, of course, because if pensions that are rising in line with public service salaries have risen 18% more over 20 years than the CPI, that is, when you get to the end of the line, that is a sizable difference. Yeah, indeed. That calculation affects the whole gamut of disability benefits for veterans, Broya said, so it will have a widespread impact on veterans. Bruce Moncourt, a former corporal who was wounded in Afghanistan in 2006, said it appears the federal government is poised to begin nickel and diming veterans once again. Oh, I am not down with this. He pointed to the new Veterans Charter, which, when enacted almost 20 years ago, and that was brought to us by the Conservatives, by the way, recalculated benefits using a complex system that saw some injured soldiers paid less in disability benefits than those who had been hurt before the new system took effect. The new Veterans Charter was a sore political point for then Prime Minister Stephen Harper's government, which was forced to make a series of costly adjustments. The lingering bitterness among former soldiers contributed to a swing in veterans' votes away from the Conservatives towards the Liberals in 2015. The infamous ABC campaign, Anyone But Conservatives, that started from the veterans community after the Conservatives had pulled this stunt. Quote, I've already had the rug pulled out for me once before. I'd prefer not to have it done again, Moncourt said, referring to the political battles over the new Veterans Charter. Quote, you felt like you were fighting a bureaucratic insurance company. Eventually, I would say, without exaggeration, that most of my PTSD was not for fighting for my country, but fighting my country. Moncourt, noting how the federal government is pouring billions of dollars into buying new military equipment and spending millions to attract new recruits, said it's going to take more than signing bonuses and new kits to convince people they're making the right choice to sign up and put on a military uniform. Yeah, this is something I would not recommend. If this is something that applies to all disability benefits, the option to choose between one or the other, and they're looking to do this thing for consistency with benefits in general, that would be one thing. It would be a great thing, but it would be one thing. But if that is the case, then veterans' benefits should be excluded from this. And if it is specifically having to do with veterans' benefits and not just general disability benefits, then why are they even touching this? Why are they even touching this? Because if we're increasing salaries and ensuring that veterans' benefits, disability benefits specifically are, if you're going to single them out from the general disability benefit, ensuring that those are appropriately generous are two things that you absolutely need for the recruitment and the retainment. And they all go into trying to meet that NATO funding 5%, 3.5% in direct costs and 1.5% in sort of infrastructure or supporting costs. There's no reason to touch this whatsoever. So this is something we're going to keep our eye on, because I don't like the sound of this at all. At all. And especially, yeah, my God. Canadian governments, regardless of the stripe, okay, stop toying with stuff for veterans. Just stop. There's nothing to be gained. It doesn't represent a very significant part of the overall national budget. And PR-wise, there is nothing, absolutely nothing to be gained by being cheap with our veterans. Nothing. Just stop. Don't go there. When you're in the caucus room or whatever room and some people mentions it out, just stop right there. No, that's a no-go zone. We have a contract. You serve, we take care of you. Especially if you get hurt. That's the deal. Stop trying to change the terms of the deal. There's hardly anybody in Canada that's going to balk, that's going to protest at the fact that we're doing right by our veterans. Just stop. Stop. Don't even have the conversation. Don't even entertain the idea. There is nothing in it for you. And whatever savings that you think you can score are immaterial in the long run. It always costs less to do the right thing the right way the first time. Stop screwing with our vets. This is not hard. I don't know. For me, when this topic comes up and people start entertaining it, it's not a question of what are you thinking, it's are you thinking? It's just that simple. I do not get this. All right. Moving on, kids and cubs, to story time with conservatives. All right, kids and cubs. As you know, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, there has been a lot going on with regard to well, the Conservative Party of Canada. Um, as you know, short Cole's Notes version, the Conservatives have been in a rather downward spiral for the better part of the last well, let's say the last month or so. And it's completely unprovoked. They just decided that, they were walking down the street, doody 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 doo, and oh, look, a manhole. Let's step into it. Whoop. Just right. Nobody pushed them into this. Nobody laid out a trap. No, nothing. Pierre went on a friendly podcast, Northern Perspectives, and then was asked about liberal corruption. That liberal corruption, all that corruption that 1/3 of which the liberals, who've been one half of the parties who have governed Canada, have engaged in since the beginning of time. That whole 1/3, who's responsible for the other 2/3? I guess the other party that was in charge. And in charge much less often. They like to pack the corruption in when they get the chance, you see. But let's forget the fact that the people who asked this question to try to make liberals look bad didn't notice that in the asking of the question, they were telling on themselves. And then Pierre, rather than just talking in general about corruption, then decided to go in and make some swipes at the RCMP, from which caused some lot of consternation within his party. And kept on hearing that as a result of that, there were some people that might be choosing to look at Pierre in a different light. And that there were maybe about 2 to 5 of them that were particularly upset about this. And then uh, there was the whole story that they told us, no, 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 no. We don't mean current leadership, even though we made those comments in the present. And we don't mean the entire leadership. We mean the former commissioner of the RCMP, who happens to be a woman. But not you, current commissioner, who was the deputy commissioner at the time, the commissioner that we now say that these comments apply to, and only her. Okay. And we were supposed to believe that. We were supposed to believe that. And then, well, PeePee decided that he was going to start telling sex jokes, and then that didn't really work out for him. And then PeePee decided that, well, he was, I guess, internally going to start. I mean, this is something that he's been doing for a long time, as we noted on our Monday show, but, exerting the pressure and all that kind of stuff. And, well, on budget day, 2 hours before the budget was read, one Conservative MP, there was a news that came out in Politico that said that he might be looking to cross the floor to the Liberals. And then, allegedly, there was an incident in his office in which two Conservative MPs, the House Leader, Andrew Scheer, and the whip, Chris Workerton. Now, the part about how they got into his office, there seems to be a little doubt there. According to Chris D'Entremont, when he was telling the story, they had pushed his assistant aside and barged through the door. The Conservatives tell a different story. It seems there may, this is legitimate here, that there may not have been a pushing aside of the assistant. There's possible that there may not have been physical contact, right? But it seems that there's, but and there's even dispute now as to whether or not they barged in. Um, we'll get to that later. The dispute about the barged in, I do not think there is as much doubt as the pushing aside. But the pushing aside, it would seem that that perhaps didn't happen as D'Entremont would have noticed or seen it from his side of the door. Let's put it that way. However, um, they entered his office and started yelling at him. And it seems that, according to him, that was the moment that decided, yeah, I am definitely making the switch now. Then the next day, then there were a whole bunch of rumors about a whole bunch of other people. And well, as the story goes, right, it's 2 to 5 Conservatives who might have a problem. And it's like 7 to 10. And nowadays, the stories are out there is it's 10 to 15 and potentially even 20. So every time we keep on hearing what the turmoil is going on in the conservative side, it keeps on seeming that there are more and more people starting to come, if not come to the conclusion that Pierre may not be all that in a bag of chips. Um, that uh, maybe I should be seriously considering certain life choices, so to speak. That number keeps on growing. So according to the pundits and the journalists and the investigative journalists that are looking into this, and the political reporters and that whole team. So that part of it is not good for the conservatives. So and the press is not that great. We have opinion pieces like the one by Sharon Carr that we read in a couple of days ago that are pretty incisive and you know, a lot of these things that we're seeing seem to be confirming a lot of things that we've suspected or known or felt to be true about the Conservative Party of Canada, particularly under Pierre Poilièvre's leadership for quite some time now. And it's just sort of all coming up. Then the next day, Matt Genereux, an MP Conservative from Alberta, the Edmonton area, announces that he is just up and quitting politics. Now, he was an MP that was rumored, very much rumored, to also be considering crossing the floor, also somewhat of a moderate, also, like D'Entremont, some person that sees value in the contributions of members from all sides of the House. And in the Conservative Party of Canada, which is now sort of a purity test operation. If you are able to find something good, if you're able to sit across the table and have a civil conversation, fraternize with someone from another party, if you're able to show up at a funding announcement, right? This has happened to the Conservatives before. under Trudeau, there was a funding announcement under the Housing Accelerator Fund, and in a riding that in which a Conservative MP is seating, and they were invited to the announcement. On a few occasions, some Conservatives went, and when they went, ooh, boy, did they ever get punished for that. So, but for those MPs that are able to see good in people that wear a team jersey that is any color but conservative blue, well, they're not true blue. They're not real conservatives. And therefore, they must go. Well, Matt Regeneru was one of those people that could see the good in people from other sides. And it would seem that he had a meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney himself, right? So Chris D'Entremont did on the Monday. It seems Tuesday during question period, budget day, Matt Generou had a meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney. So there were things swirling about, and it would seem now, we don't know if this is the case because there's a lot of things that are not in the public domain or known for sure, haven't been confirmed, but it seems that the story is the best that the political journalists can pick it up is that Matt Generou was about 80% of the way there to crossing the floor. And something happened where instead of saying getting the other 20% of the way to crossing the floor, he doubled back the full 80% the other way and then maybe went 50% more and said, well, actually, you know what? No, I'm not going to cross the floor to the Liberals, but I'm also not staying here. I'm out of here. Deuces, goodbye. And instead of leaving right now, he's going to leave in the spring. And you noticed on social media the differences in the manner in which conservatives have been talking about Chris D'Entremont. He's a rat. He is a traitor. He is a liar. And Matt Generou. Oh, Matt Generou is such a wonderful person. And see, because obviously he doesn't have a problem with the leader. Matt Generou said so. Yeah, yes, Matt Generou said so. Blink 3 times really quickly if you're in danger, Matt. But with that, however, there was a whole thing with Matt very specifically stating that he would really like people to leave his family alone. And that he absolutely, most definitely absolutely was not coerced. Notice what I'm doing here, right? I was not coerced at all. My body language and my words are sending you 2 completely different messages. I definitely was not coerced. We're supposed to believe that the party of bullying tactics and intimidation and smearing and lying and just making shit up would be beyond coercion. Even though we know they keep Oppo research on their own members. Even though we know that they have staffers monitoring them when they're giving interviews to press outlets. They're there on the side, sort of like, what are you saying? Taking little notes. Oh, we saw you in the parliamentary cafeteria. You were sitting a little too close to someone who likes to wear orange. Need to put that down on the file. But there was no coercion. We are supposed to believe. And Matt, again, right? Matt says he has no problem with the leadership. And Matt says he wasn't coerced. Look, he said it himself. If you want to know if he's been coerced, well, yeah, listen to Matt. Now, of course, Matt, by resigning in the spring, of course, creates a situation where, well, there can't be a by-election before Pierre's leadership review, and a by-election that Pierre could, or the Conservative Party could very potentially lose in Edmonton. particularly since progressive conservative-minded Canadians really seem to like Mark Carney much more than they like Pierre Poilièvre. So, yeah, they made sure they um, tidied up that little potential mess. And now, Matt Genereux, even though it is November 12th, and even though he's going to step aside sometime in the spring, apparently, like Damien Carrick, who announced really early that he was going to uh, give up his seat. Yes, but he didn't give it up right away. He waited a little bit. Yes, but he too made one last speech in the House and then waited a few weeks yet before he resigned his seat. Because I guess since the Conservatives knew that Mark Carney wasn't going to play games, they needed a couple of extra weeks to get ready for that by-election. So Damien Carrick basically left the seat unoccupied for a couple of weeks while the Conservative machine could get itself in order. And then when they were ready to go, he stepped aside. So, by the way, we paid for that. We paid for the whole by-election, but we paid Damien Carrick's salary and benefits and everything for the entire time he was not in that seat while the Conservatives were getting their crap together, because they didn't really expect Mark Carney to follow through with going ahead with the by-election right away. But then when they realized he was serious, I said, yeah, okay, you resigned now, but don't give up the seat just now. We're not ready. Well, Matt Genereux's doing the same thing now. Well, Matt Genereux. Um, uh, Matt Genereux, definitely not at the Conservative Party of Canada or Pierre Poilièvre's urging or behest, is now essentially leaving an empty seat for several months. He'll still keep getting paid. We'll still be paying salary and benefits for Matt, but again, all to protect and preserve tiny, small, petty, and well, I shouldn't use petty for Pierre. It's not like I'm above petty. But entitled and very, 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 very fragile Pierre. So Pierre has lost 2 MPs. And the press is not good. Now, conservatives always complain, oh, we get terrible press, we get terrible press. And I keep on saying, well, you get terrible press because you do terrible things. If 87% of the press you get is terrible, and you're doing terrible things 87% of the time, that's not media bias against you. That's reporting. If you want better press, be better people. Right? I mean, it's not that hard. So that's sort of where things lie when we left our story for a few days. But now we're back to our regular story. And, yeah, there's some interesting tales going on here. So, on Power and Politics yesterday, they got into this, and there was a very interesting discussion. And the highlight of this discussion was a comment by NDP associated pundit Brad Levine. And we're going to get to that. But first, Kits and Cubs, lay back for story time with conservatives. Grab your favorite bevy and sit back and enjoy this one. Now, please, I'm going to give you a little bit of a caution and a warning. Please, oh my God, where have I been? There we go. Let's get me back down there. Please time your sips accordingly, because you might have a few spit takes. So I'm giving a spit take trigger warning here. The first one ever in our history. but you will come to appreciate that this was necessary. Here we go.
Nova Scotia MP Chris D'Entremont says his decision to cross the floor to the Liberals was sealed after a visit to his office by Conservative House Leader Andrew Scheer and Conservative Party Whip Chris Workington. The meeting happened on Budget Day after Politico broke the news that D'Entremont was on the verge of defection. Now all sides agree there was a meeting, but the agreement ends there, based on very different versions of that meeting from D'Entremont in a CBC interview and the Conservatives in a statement.
You know, I had the leader, the House Leader and the Whip barge into my office, push my assistant aside, rush in, push, take the door and just push it wide open.
When Mr. D'Entremont's assistant opened the door was open wide enough to come through, so they calmly entered into the reception area. Mr. D'Entremont came out of his office and invited Mr. Scheer and Mr. Workington to come inside and take a seat.
To sit there and, tell me how much of a snake I really was and turning my back on my constituents and the people that voted for me and really underline the situation that I made this decision.
They took a seat in the office and sat for a moment before Mr. Scheer calmly asked Mr. D'Entremont if he was just considering this move, as was reported in the media, or if he had already made up his mind. At that point, Mr. D'Entremont confirmed that the arrangement to join the Liberal caucus was complete.
It wasn't about, hey man, maybe you're not doing well, maybe we've misunderstood what your objectives were. There was none of that.
Mr. Scheer reminded Mr. D'Entremont of the efforts his Conservative colleagues made to try and support his election to the role of Speaker of the House. He wondered aloud that if the Conservative caucus had selected Mr. D'Entremont to be the Deputy Speaker, he would not have taken the decision to join the Liberals. Mr. D'Entremont replied, "That's probably right."
Yeah, of course that made me a little upset, but I'm an adult and I moved on.
Mr. Workington pointed out that last week you told me you would never cross the floor. Mr. D'Entremont's response was, "I guess it is what it is." Mr. Scheer responded in a calm and measured voice to inform Mr. D'Entremont that his decision could not be taken for noble reasons, and that deep down he would know that turning his back on friends and the people who elected him are the actions of a snake.
It was just, how dare you do that? How dare you? And it really pushed me to a point where it's like, okay, well, I guess my decision is made for sure now.
Mr. Scheer signaled his disappointment and stated he did not wish to remain in the meeting as he did not want to become frustrated. He then quietly left the room. Mr. Workington remained in the office and sat with Mr. D'Entremont. Mr. Workington asked Mr. D'Entremont again if the decision was final. Mr. D'Entremont confirmed that it was a done deal. He mentioned that it did not happen in the way he intended. Mr. Workington expressed his disappointment and shook Mr. D'Entremont's hand before leaving the meeting. Okay, some discrepancies there. Let's bring in
some discrepancies there. All right, kids and cubs. So that's the Conservative Party version of the story. Now, before we get into anything, which version of the story are you more likely to believe? Based on everything in the public domain about either Chris D'Entremont or the Conservative Party of Canada, and in particular, Andrew Scheer and Chris Workington. Give you a couple seconds. Oh, it didn't take you that long? Oh, okay. You didn't need the full 3 seconds, did you? Okay. Yeah. Right. Does any of this version of the story sound remotely like anything we know to be true about conservatives, particularly this version, Poilièvre conservatives? Calm, reasonable. We were calmly talking in a measured voice. Really? Really? Girl, really? Sure. Sure. Now, let's look at some of the statements here and take a look at what it is that they are wanting us to believe. So, first statement here. When Mr. D'Entremont's assistant opened the door was open wide enough to come through, so they calmly entered into the reception area. Okay. Um, let me just do a side by side here. There we go. Now here's the thing. Chris Workington, and we saw the clip, said his assistant was pushed. You saw Catherine Cullen pushed, goes pushed. Turns out the assistant may not have been pushed. Now, however, I need you to imagine a door, and there's two sides of the door. We're on Chris D'Entremont's side of the door. D'Entremont is in his office. Matt Genereux is with him because Mr. D'Entremont just saw the story appear in Politico, and that's not how he wanted the news to get out. So apparently he turned white, went to his office. Apparently Matt Genereux went to follow. Now, I don't know if he followed immediately or whatnot, but eventually went there. They are friends, colleagues. I'm sure that Mr. Genereux wanted to see if Mr. D'Entremont was okay, was all right. What do we do now? What do you do now? That type of stuff. And all of a sudden, so they're probably in conversation. All of a sudden, two people are coming through the door, according to D'Entremont. How dare you? Now, whether the assistant was pushed or not, because how is D'Entremont really going to see this from his side of the door? Really? So this may be, there's something I call, in a narrative, there are sometimes blanks in a narrative that people fill in with what they want, need, assume to be true. If you are in your office and you have an assistant and somebody just comes through the door who is not your assistant and they have not been announced, what would you assume? That somebody pushed by your assistant and just barged in. So Chris D'Entremont may have not known for a fact whether the assistant was pushed, but probably reasonably assumed that given two people entered his office without being announced and without him saying, okay, let them in, and the assistant was there, that they had to get by the assistant somehow. That the assistant wouldn't just let them come in, especially if he's in a meeting with someone else. Right? So whether the assistant was pushed or not, they entered his office. It's not like they went to the assistant and said, we're here to see Mr. D'Entremont. Well, he's busy right now. If he would just have a seat, when he's done, I'll announce you. No, they went in. And this statement here is, when Mr. D'Entremont's assistant opened the door. Really? Really? The assistant knows that Matt Genereux is in the office with Chris D'Entremont. He's actually in there with someone. What assistant would say, oh, yes, he's in a meeting with someone, but here, come right in. Interrupt it. When would that ever happen? When Mr. D'Entremont's assistant opened the door was open wide enough to come through, so they calmly entered into the reception area. Well, yes, of course, if someone's going to open the door for you, they will open it wide enough for you to come in. Why would you feel the need to state that the assistant opened the door wide enough for you to come through so you didn't have to barge in? And then we're to believe that the assistant willingly opened the door so that two people could come in, and like that the assistant would not be aware that that article appeared in Politico and what that would mean, and just let them in. Hi, we're here to see Mr. Donchama. Oh yes, come in. Doody 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 doo. Hi, Chris. How you doing? We're supposed to believe that that's the way it went down. We're supposed to believe that Andrew Scheer, upon reading in Workington, and if you check their Twitter feeds and any video of them making public statements, and then compare that behavior to this behavior being described there. And we're supposed to believe that these are the same people, that a party like the Conservative Party of Canada, with a control freak leader like Pierre Poilièvre, who gets involved, as we saw in the election campaign, in writing nominations, keeping out the unpure, like Sabrina Maddow and Caroline Meehan, for example, right? And the Conservative Party leader that's now being now reportedly doing the same thing with a delegate selection for his leadership review, being very, very personally involved in which delegates are pure enough to be at that review to vote to keep me in, and which are not, which can I not trust to get a vote, and that we won't make a delegate. That he's involved that much, control freak to that point. The leader of the opposition, whose number one advisor is himself, according to articles that we've read into the paper. This one-man show, just like Stephen Harper. Control freak, just like Stephen Harper. Message discipline, just like Stephen Harper. People being monitored, just like Stephen Harper. Dishing out punishments, just like Stephen Harper. If you ever dare think of leaving us, we will ruin you. Just like Stephen Harper. More on that later. That this guy and the people who work for him calmly entered into the room. Sure. Then, let's see, what else? They took a seat in the office and sat for a moment. They were so calm that after they entered, they sit in the chair and they sat for a moment. They didn't come in going, how dare you? Blah, 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 blah. They entered calmly and they sat for a moment. Upon learning that one of their own was thinking of jumping ship and it getting into the press. And remember that story we read yesterday from November 2024? You do not undercut the leader. And that's something that would clearly undercut the leader. So we know for at least a year, if you do anything that undercuts the leader, you get punished. That they just entered the room and actually sat for a moment before Mr. Scheer calmly. This is now 4 instances where they're putting the emphasis on, we were calm, asked Mr. D'Entremont if he was just considering this move. Mr. D'Entremont was like, they weren't like, they didn't come in and say like, are you okay? But they're saying, yeah, have you already made up your mind? Have you? And at that point, Mr. D'Entremont confirmed that the arrangement to join the Liberal caucus was complete. Mr. D'Entremont claims that was after this encounter that it was complete. So conservatives here are claiming that there's a little bit of time travel here, that D'Entremont had actually confirmed to them before he actually confirmed to the Liberal Party that the arrangement was complete. Well, actually here they would say that the arrangement was complete, so he would have confirmed to the party already prior to the budget statement having been read when d'Entremont said specifically he was waiting to hear what was going to be in it before making his final decision. So we're supposed to believe that. All right. Keep going through that statement. Mr. Scheer reminded d'Entremont of the efforts his Conservative colleagues tried to make to support his election to the role of Speaker of the House. No, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. Mr. d'Entremont put his name, and the Conservative Party decided, no, we're not going to put your name forward. We're going to put somebody else's name instead. The party that substituted Mr. d'Entremont's name, removed it from contention, is now claiming here that they reminded him of the efforts that his colleagues made to try and support his election to the role. Really? And now throwing in here, because Mr. d'Entremont has been very clear, saying, yeah, I wanted it and I didn't get it. And like any normal person who wants something they didn't get, I was disappointed for a moment, but I'm an adult and I got over it. They needed to correct that too, right? He wondered aloud that if the Conservative caucus had selected Mr. d'Entremont to be the deputy speaker, he would not have taken the decision to join the Liberals. Yeah. And Mr. d'Entremont replied, that's probably right. Or something like that. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Mr. Workington.
That made me a little up.
Sorry. That's my bad. And then Mr. This is not working here. Let me do this. Nope. That's not the right one. This one. There we go. Let's try that. Yes, Mr. d'Entremont replied, that's probably right. That's what I was looking for. For some reason, the thing was stopping right somewhere in the middle. There. So that is a 180-degree different version than what we heard from Mr. d'Entremont. There. Then the next statement, and again, this seems to be conveniently added at this moment. Mr. Workington pointed out that last week you told me you would never cross the floor. Mr. d'Entremont's response is, I guess what it is. Which raises the question, why would Mr. Workington have had the need for Mr. d'Entremont to have told him that he would never cross the floor? Were people, if that thing is there, last week you told me you would never cross the floor, that would mean that last week there were people in the Conservative Party very concerned that Mr. d'Entremont would cross the floor. For what reason would they be concerned that Mr. d'Entremont would cross the floor? For what reason would they be seeking confirmation last week that Mr. d'Entremont would not cross the floor if they did not have a feeling that Mr. d'Entremont was pretty much fed up and ready to cross the floor? You don't go seeking confirmation for something you're not worried about, right? Let's keep going. What else do they have in this statement? Mr. Scheer, and here we go. Again, fifth. Mr. Scheer responded in a calm and measured voice. 6. Do we know Andrew Scheer to be calm and measured? I remember Andrew Scheer when he was the leader of the party. On one of the days that the SNC Lavalin thing came up, day one, he came to a microphone and stated that there was enough in the public domain already that would require the Prime Minister to resign, because that's a calm and measured conclusion based on half a day's reporting. Because in a common measured voice, that his decision could not be taken for noble reasons. Why not? And that deep down he would know he'd be just turning his back on friends. Which friends within the party? If last week they were seeking confirmation that he wasn't thinking about leaving, which friends? And the people who elected him are the actions of a snake. And here, again, we have the Conservative Party here behaving like the House of Commons is not the House of Commons, of the common people, the house that belongs to the common people, the seats in the House who also belong to the people. They believe it's the House of Parties. That if you're elected and you're elected as a Conservative, that's a Conservative seat. It's not a Chris Tremont seat. Or it's not even a residence of the riding of Acadie Annapolis seat. The seat belongs to them, not to Chris Tremont, and not to the Conservative Party of Canada. The people of that riding chose Chris Tremont because that's the name on the ballot to sit in that seat to represent their best interests. Mr. D'Entremont, somewhere along the way, decided that the best interests of the constituents of his riding would be best served under the Liberal banner rather than the Conservative banner. And he made the switch. Now, if the constituents don't agree with that, there will be another election at some point where they will have the chance to give their verdict on that. That's how the system works. It's a betrayal. It's against Parliament. It's undemocratic. Blah, 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 blah. No, it actually isn't. He needs to sit as an independent or not at all. He needs to resign that seat and run again as a Liberal then because people didn't vote for Liberal. Well, they maybe didn't necessarily vote for Conservative either. They may have voted for Chris. I mean, he has been in politics for 22 years. People know him. People kind of like him. He's being reelected every time, either at the provincial or at the federal level. Chances are, what are the odds that people might be voting for Chris because they like Chris? The Conservatives are behaving like it's their seat. It has to be a Conservative seat or an independent seat at best, but not any other seat after the election. If you're going to change the color of the seat, you need to go run in a by-election. There's no rules that say that. There's nothing in the Westminster parliamentary system, which predates our country, that obligates that. This is the summit of entitlement on the part of the Conservative Party of Canada, who, again, fail to remember that it's not the House of Parties. It's the House of Commons. That seat belongs to the people, not to the party. All right. And, of course, Andrew Scheer, in that statement here, it says, and deep down, he would know that turning his back on friends and the people who elected them are the actions of a snake. Does Andrew Scheer seem the type of person that would take the time to deliver in a common measured voice words and make the distinction between personalizing a behavior or talking about the behavior rather than the person? Now, this is something I do often, right? When somebody is being childish, I don't say, you're being childish. I say, you're behaving like a child, because you're childish is a statement about the person. You're behaving like a child is a statement about the behavior. Right? You have to be calm and be measured in order, especially in a moment of tension when things are escalating and escalating in such a way that people might become dysregulated in their behavior and then trying to make their dysregulation your dysregulation, to actually have the distance and the calm to make sure that the words you are choosing are focusing on the behavior and not accusatory of the person. Does Andrew Scheer strike you like the type of person that would not refrain from making accusatory statements about people to make sure that they are focused on their behavior, especially in a calm and measured voice? Yeah. There's nothing about these statements that reflect things that I know to be true about the Conservative Party of Canada. Mr. Scheer signaled his disappointment and stated he did not wish to remain in the meeting as he didn't want to become frustrated. Then he quietly left the room. Instances 6 and 7 of focusing on how Mr. Scheer was so calm and measured and reasonable. So Scheer leaves, and apparently Workington remained in the office. Sat with D'Entremont, and Workington asked D'Entremont if the decision was final. D'Entremont mentioned it was a done deal. This is not the way I intended for it to happen, but this is how it happened. And then Workington expressed his disappointment. Notice that they're not saying in the common measured voice here. And shook Mr. D'Entremont's hand, which would, oh, well then I'm disappointed. Shake hands before leaving the meeting. None of these things. None of this is behavior. I invite you to take a couple of minutes to check out Mr. Chris Workington's Twitter feed and see if the manner in which he expresses his disappointment on his Twitter feed is anyway similar to the manner in which it would appear that he expressed his disappointment here. Are any of you buying this, kits and cubs? That's a lot of stories. That's like every single element of what Chris D'Entremont has said. They countered with the 180-degree polar opposite. And let's be clear here, right? Chris Workington is a rat and a liar and a traitor. Because the Conservative Party of Canada has a problem with people behaving like rats, constant undermining of the government, being traitors, support of the convoy, and being liars every time they open their damn mouths. I know you're lying. Your lips are moving. We are supposed to believe that today the members of the Conservative Party of Canada have a problem with rat-like behavior, traitor-like behavior, and lying. Which is their stock and trade. But they have a problem with this. This is behavior that is completely anathema to the Conservative brand. They are shocked, I tell you, that someone would be a rat and a traitor and a liar. They definitely don't stand for that. Not at all. Okay. Are any of you buying this? Polar vortex. Gosh, would PeePee and minions lie? Shock. Saucy. The Conservatives are freaking out because they know this means they will likely lose 2 more to the Liberals. 2 more. Since this whole thing started, the number has gone from 2 to 5 to 20 that are seriously reconsidering life choices here. And I see comments here. I'm not sure we really want to explore this avenue. I feel like there's a lot of stuff in the Liberal and NDP closets, pretty much all of it full freakouts. I would have to go look. Yeah, perhaps. But we're talking about this particular instance. Right? It doesn't matter whether other parties do it, lie and whatnot. In this particular instance here, who's lying? Who's telling the truth? Or who's more likely to be, based on everything we know to be true, because it's in the public domain of all sides involved in this. Right? This is something that a lot of people in politics will do when they're looking at one specific instance. They'll go, yeah, but everybody else does it too. It's like, yeah, okay, and it can be wrong. Lying is wrong no matter who does it. But the fact that there's lying going on in whole other areas done by whole other people is absolutely irrelevant to who's lying now in this particular one. This is politics. There are no saints. There are no saints. But yeah, come on. Does anybody believe that this is the manner in which the Conservatives actually did behave? Or is this revision after the fact to try to make Chris Workington look bad? Not Chris Workington, to make Chris D'Entremont work bad. It's hard when everybody has the same name. Jeez. So, let's go back to the video and get back and see what the pundits have to say with regard to this going on. And I'm going to let it run for a little bit until we get to Brad Levine, because it would appear that Brad Levine has more skepticism. And throughout this segment, please pay attention to Rob Russo, the journalist, all the way, I believe, on the right, I believe on the screen will be. Keep paying attention to his face as people are talking, because he's having a hella good time. All right, here we go.
Okay, some discrepancies there. Let's bring in the power panel to get their take on this version of events. Vandana Cotter was an advisor to former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Kate Harrison is a Conservative political analyst. Brad Levine is a former national campaign director for the NDP. And here with me is Rob Russo, who is the Canada correspondent for The Economist. Good to see you all. Rob, in a calm and measured way, they called him a snake. It's interesting to see how this all played out. It was yelling and hostility in one version, and it was calm and measured in the other. What do you make of what we're seeing there?
Well, I think Mr. Scheer proudly called himself a member of something called the Khmer Bleu when they sat in opposition. He and Mr. Poilièvre were part of it. They were not known for laying down lace doilies and having tea with people that opposed them. So not a shock. Emotions run very, very high. I think the question that a lot of sort of red Tories, if not progressive Conservatives, are asking themselves after all of this, and what they've heard and seen subsequent to it, is whether or not they have a place in the party. And I think this is an important moment for the Conservative Party as we know it now. Stephen Harper was very, very good at understanding that if you want to succeed in politics, it's by addition, not by subtraction. And there has been a tendency among Conservatives of late to exclude people who are, they say, might not be true blue Conservatives. I remember Erin O'Toole had to call himself a true blue Conservative because of similar suspicions. And the Conservatives can ill afford. They need to add, even though they did very, very well in the last election, got far more votes. Mr. Poilièvre said, we need 1 million more votes. That's what we need. They're not going to do it if they exclude progressive Conservatives, and they are feeling excluded right now.
Kate, what are your thoughts on what we're seeing here with the version laid out by Mr. D'Entremont in the interview with my colleague Catherine Cullen, and the sort of the written rebuttal from the opposition leader's office?
This has been called a political soap opera for the last few days, and I think it's less Young and the Restless and more middle-aged and jittery. I felt like I was listening to the true crime podcast there with the two versions of events, and usually when you have two very different versions of events, the truth is frankly somewhere in the middle. To Rob's point, I agree that slicing and dicing of conservatism, red Tories over here, true blue conservatives over there, does not a majority government make. But at the same time, I think Mr. D'Entremont has been pretty clear about why it was that he left. It wasn't actually necessarily based in policy and substance. It seems that he was still harboring a fair bit of resentment over the deputy speakership, and that by his own admission to a number of his colleagues, he was unlikely to be reelected in his riding under a blue banner. And I think that is more symptomatic or emblematic, I should say, of some of the growing pains that the Conservative caucus is likely to be going through right now. For every Chris D'Entremont in Atlantic Canada in a riding that is predominantly older Canadians, Conservatives are hoping to make gains in suburban ridings in the GTA. So that coalition is shifting, and I think that Mr. D'Entremont may well be right that getting elected under the blue banner might have proven difficult for him in the next election. But I think it would be a mistake to kind of not see those political electoral decisions are for what they are and make this a broader problem about the party to fix, when so far things have been relatively isolated to a handful of individuals who are discontent.
Okay. We're going to interrupt there. This person who speaks for the Conservative Party of Canada here, or on behalf of, or to defend that position, said two things here that were interesting. And the first one just popped right out of my mind. I should have written it down to make a note of it. But the second thing was that she's admitting that D'Entremont may have had difficulty being re-elected in the next election under the Conservative banner in that riding. Why would that be? Remember, in the previous election prior to it, when we were looking at the polls before Justin Trudeau stepped aside, it looked like there was a certain part of Atlantic Canada, a good chunk of it, that was going to go Conservative. And then Prime Minister Trudeau resigned and Mark Carney came along, and everything in the polls just flipped right back. And when it came time for the election, 10 of the 11 seats in Nova Scotia went Liberal. The only one that went blue was D'Entremont's, and it went blue by 1.1%. Mr. D'Entremont also has never been on the record yet stating that he intends to run in the next election. In fact, in the interview that we showed you, he's stating, it's like, well, I have been in politics for a certain amount of time yet, so this, I'm not sure whether or not I'll run again, but I do want to accomplish something in the time that I am here in this term. After an entire federal political career on the opposition benches. So, yeah. Oh, yes. The first thing was that when there are two versions of the truth lays somewhere in the middle. Yes, that's true. But when one version of the truth is over here, and the other version of the truth is way over here, that's a lot of middle. The truth could be here in the middle, here in the middle, here in the middle, here in the middle. Right? The truth is not sometimes all the way straight down the middle. It might be 90% on Chris D'Entremont's side and 10% on the Conservative part side is still somewhere in the middle, but still mostly on D'Entremont's side. Right? So there's the little kernel of truth that the assistant may not have been pushed. That makes D'Entremont a liar because he claimed it, because it couldn't simply just be a matter of perception based on where physically he was situated when he happened, on the other side of the door with two people coming through the door who were not announced. The fact that he was incorrect about that statement makes him a liar. And says he lied about that. He's lied about everything. So I got to be careful when you're with conservatives, because if you say, you have to always be saying things that you absolutely know to be true, because if you speculate, if you suspect, if you're inaccurate in any way, they take that and they run with it, and you are a liar, and then they hold that as truth. And that's all the minions need, the ones who really, really want to believe. Well, he said that he pushed her and he did it. Rah, 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 rah. And then the rest is gone. Now the conservatives are going like this. He said, he tried to say that that his assistant was assaulted. Yes, I understand technically putting your hands on someone without them being asked and pushing them out of the way technically constitutes an assault. But I don't think there's nowhere that D'Entremont was suggesting that the assistant was assaulted. Right? Wasn't like Elbowgate. They turn around and say, oh my God, the Prime Minister assaulted. It's like, there's accidental contact. Right? So conservatives like to put interesting spins and interpretations on things. Yeah. But she is claiming here that, yes, it's probably true that Chris D'Entremont would have trouble being reelected as a conservative in that riding. And why would that be, Kate? Why would that be? All right, let's keep on going with this. I keep on clicking on the wrong damn button. Here we go. Now we get to, I think now we get to Brad, which is good. Now, again, keep your eye on Bob Russo.
Vandana, your party went through a bit of soap opera itself in the past year or so. What do you make of watching it on another channel this time? I mean, how do you think this is affecting things with the broader public? Or is it, as Andrew Scheer says, nobody really cares about this outside of the Ottawa bubble?
I don't think people necessarily care about it, but I think the problem when these things come up is that it causes questions the Conservative Party may not want to answer right now. I'm sure they'd rather spend time litigating the budget or putting up other perspectives or narratives they want to drive. But when people are focused on this, that's what they're talking about. So you're not able to get your message across if people are wondering, oh, what's happening to the party? Is Pierre going to survive his leadership vote? Is this a proper place for progressive conservatives? Is he able to get a majority? Is there further discontent? As long as that takes on the headlines and is part of the chattering class, it's hard for them to get out their message. So I think that will be difficult for them. I think on another side of things, in terms of how people are talking about Mr. D'Entremont, I will say I remember watching when I think MP Leonela Leslev crossed the floor to the Conservatives. I remember feeling very hurt by that because I thought we were good friends. But I remember at the time, Kate Telford asked, as our senior staff, we got together, and she said, I want us to reflect on how this happened. What did we do? Where did we miss things? Did we not make her feel connected? And we noticed that, for example, she didn't attend the National Caucus. Did anyone wonder where she was? Did we check in? So it became an internal reflection piece. Remember, that really stood out to me because it made me think at the time, like, when was the last time I connected to her? Did I hear her issues? Did I understand what she was going through? So I think when people look at things that way, rather than, vilifying them, because I think most Canadians aren't necessarily left or right. Not everyone's a card-carrying liberal or conservative. So most people can find themselves either way, depending on what election it is. I think when you vilify someone, or if members are vilifying someone, it doesn't sit right with the Canadian public.
So, Brad, I know there's been sort of the argument that this is sour grapes over losing the deputy speaker job, though Chris D'Entremont never ran for that job. His name was withdrawn at the last minute, which is an interesting development, and there's some suggestion that maybe that was internal politics at play there. But he said in the interview that in his criticism of the way the leader's office is running, he compared it to a fraternity. He said it's like a frat house. That's a pretty sharp criticism at the Conservative leadership right there from the former Conservative MP.
Well, I think that for the folks at home who are trying to decide who's telling the story that's closer to the truth, I think you have to look at the whole tone of the Conservatives in their response to this, because floor crossing has been happening for decades in this country, and different leaders and different caucus members or former caucus members have responded differently. And what we're seeing here, I think, kind of leans into some of the aspects of the Conservative Party under Pierre Poilièvre that Canadians don't like. And you saw them the day after the budget and Mr. d'Entremont's floor crossing. You saw individual MPs coming into the House of Commons on the streeters, and they called him a liar. They called him a coward. They said very, very negative things, very vitriolic, very toxic. That is in keeping with, I think, what a lot of Canadians who don't like Mr. Poilièvre's leadership. That's that part of that addition of the voter coalition that he needs in order to win the next election. And then what we have is the latest story, where we've got two sets of their stories of events. Now, which is more plausible? Because we weren't there, so we don't know precisely what happened. Here you've got a relatively calm, mild-mannered member of Parliament from Atlantic Canada saying that Mr. Scheer and the whip barged into his office and began yelling at him. And then what you see, so first of all, it's a communications method. So Mr. d'Entremont has been on television looking Canadians square in the eye, revealing his story. Mr. Scheer and Poilièvre's office issued a written statement, which is a little bit different. Where it falls off is that the written statement is so over the top by talking about how calm Mr. Scheer was. In a mild-mannered voice, he said the following. Not credible because, first of all, that's not the way we see Mr. Scheer in the House of Commons. We didn't see them like that as leader. He was quite vitriolic and sharp in his criticism. So it almost seems like thou dost protest too much here. There's no way that most Canadian political observers would say, yeah, that's probably how it went down. Scheer walked into the office very calm, gently sat down, and talked calmly with the floor crosser for a spell of time. So it's not plausible. And so again, they're leaning in to the very aspects that many Canadians just don't like about it. Maybe it's not the policies, but it's the tone and style of politics that this is in keeping with Poilièvre. That's the ceiling that Poilièvre's up against. And this week is, and now the new week, starting off quite bad for Poilièvre again.
Kate, I seen you restraining yourself. Jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not barging, kind of through the camera over.
This is why you're all remote, to stop that sort of stuff. Anyway, go ahead.
No, not at all. It'd be fun to do this in person. No, I do think that the clarification of events was important because some of the initial reporting suggested that there may have been a staff member actually physically assaulted through the course of this process. And I do think that it is really critical that the party came out and correct that. And since then, the reporting has indicated that that's not the case. So, I think we're all acknowledging that tensions are high. Politics is a team sport. And when you have a member of that team walk away on something as critical as Budget Day, that is, of course, going to get MPs emotional. And I have no doubt that that was a very tense meeting. But I do think that parsing through the series of events, to Vandana's point, is less effective for the Conservatives in terms of trying to get back to the main message here, which is that the Carney government rather talk about this issue than the budget that they just released. They gave permission to Mr. d'Entremont to conduct that interview. We saw quite a bit of lauding of that floor crossing over the course of the back half of last week. And I think that speaks volumes about what the government's priority is right now. It's not on detailing the aspects of their budget that they're proud of for Canadians. It's focusing on this House drama and hoping that everybody forgets about the doubling of the deficit that we just saw.
Well, maybe, because our next topic is going to be the budget sales pitch, because the Prime Minister is going around the country to sell it, right? But I know it certainly overshadowed some of the criticism with what happened. Rob, I'm going to give you the last word. Then I want to actually shift to the budget and some criticism of it.
Well, when I read that account, you're too young to remember Dragnet, but it reminded me of the flat monotone of Joe Friday. I expected the end to say, and then I stepped out and sparked up a lucky. I think the more important point is the involvement of Tom Pitfield. The Toronto Star did some very good reporting about how this, the intrigue kind of happened, where they met, who they met with. Tom Pitfield's involvement goes back to something Kate said earlier, which is these guys were probably shown data telling them that they had a good chance of winning re-election as Liberals in their ridings. And again, it is those red Tories who are being targeted and who feel welcome. And why do they feel welcome? Because we have a Prime Minister who's cutting taxes, spending more on defense, and focusing on the economy. This would not have happened under Justin Trudeau. It's happening because we have progressive conservative prime minister in some ways.
Look, the whole Atlantic political map changed when Justin Trudeau resigned, right? He swept it in 2015. He was going to lose it bad in 2025 until he didn't.
So, yeah, there you have it, kids, Cubs. Rob Russo, through Brad Levine's statement, sort of covering his mouth and chuckling to himself, having a great old time. Brad Levine just pretty much coming up and straight up saying, he didn't straight up say they're lying, but it's like, it's not plausible. So he basically just straight up said, these people are lying. Then you have Kate Harrison coming up again. And, in her answer, I'm glad that the Conservatives corrected the record about the assistant perhaps being pushed. Through that whole thing that Brad Levine said, pointing out at all the points where this story just is not credible, that there is nothing in this story that is anchored or tethered to anything we know to be true of that party and how it behaves, that exists in the public domain for all of us to see. Well, I'm glad that the party corrected D'Entremont's inaccuracy about the assistant being pushed, because, those damn liberals, they would sure love to keep talking about this much more than they would love to be talking about the fact that they are doubling the deficit. Yeah, except that it wasn't the liberals that did this. When the news broke that D'Entremont was going to cross, he was still conservative at the time. And all this fallout, this office meeting and yelling and pushing, there were no liberals in that office room. There are no liberals in that meeting. I'm not sure what the liberals are doing to make all of this happen. I'm sorry, but it's like the Conservatives are doing this to themselves. It's like, I punched myself in the damn face. Damn liberals. It's your fault. Like, all you had to do was not punch yourself in the face, and there wouldn't be an issue. Maybe if Pierre had decided not to be a dick 98.76% of the time, the stories about him being a control freak and people being monitored and people being punished and, text messages that seem to have auto-generated themselves, asking everybody in someone's writing to demand that the MP resign, automatically send themselves to people, as was the case of Alain Reyes, or respected members of committees like Karen Vecchio, who worked well with members of other parties, suddenly are not removed from the chairmanship of committees, of which they've been a chair for following several elections in a row. So much so that they decide that they just don't want to run for the party again. These are all things we know to be true of the Conservative Party of Canada. It is, it's a lot. It is a lot to be asking us to believe this. It's a lot. I don't think that there's very much in this version of the story from the Conservative Party of Canada that is true. This isn't the behavior described in that story is not behavior that is consistent in any way, shape, or form with all other behavior that we have seen from them. Consistently, Pierre's been leader now for 3 years, or around there. There's nothing consistent with that. And Kits and Cubs, if you think this sort of conservatives would never behave like this, is new, that this is a recent thing? No. There's how would we put it? There is a party history of this type of behavior. Back in the days of Stephen Harper, there was a situation at one point. You may remember, maybe not remember, it's been a while now, but there was Helena Jurgis, if you remember her, and her husband, Rahim Jaffer, if you remember him. And all of a sudden, they became a little inconvenient to Mr. Harper. And then all of a sudden, there were stories that just seemed to come out all of a sudden. And they were very, very interesting stories. Stephen Harper was very famous. It was called the Harper Bus. And he would do things, and then thump, thump, the Harper Bus would roll over you, and then back up and roll over you again, and then go forward and roll over you again. In April 14th, 2024, the Conservative Party of Canada, April 14th, 2011, the Conservative Party of Canada lawyer at the time, Arthur Hamilton, I believe, had stated, well, actually, it was the Prime Minister that did that. Stephen Harper had referred to the fact that there were serious allegations, but didn't define them, as he had ousted Helena Jurgis from caucus, April 14th, 2011. CBC News has learned that the quote-unquote serious allegations Prime Minister Stephen Harper referred to last year in connection with former Conservative MP Helena Jurgis, so this stuff happened in 2010, included unsubstantiated claims of fraud, extortion, and involvement with prostitutes. But a letter written by a Harper aide and obtained by CBC News states that the Prime Minister's office learned the allegations had been made by a Toronto private investigator. The letter also reveals the allegations were not based on any hard evidence. Harper has never explained what the allegations were against Jurgis, who was later cleared by the RCMP of any wrongdoing. The Ontario MP, who was ousted from cabinet and caucus in the party in April 2010, has also claimed she was never personally told what the allegations were, something the Conservatives deny. But CBC News has obtained the letter sent by Harper's principal secretary, Ray Novak, to RCMP Commissioner William Elliott regarding Jurgis and her husband, former Tory MP Rahim Jaffer. Quote, the allegations are numerous and include fraud, extortion, obtaining benefits by false pretenses, and involvement in prostitution, Novak wrote in a letter dated April 9th, 2010. But Novak wrote that the Prime Minister's office has, quote, no firsthand knowledge of these allegations. Instead, Novak said that the PMO had, quote, become aware of the specifics of the allegations made by Toronto-based private investigator Derek Snowdy. Novak wrote that the PMO had not communicated directly with Snowdy and that the communication was conducted through the Conservative Party's legal counsel, Arthur Hamilton. A week later, Hamilton was interviewed by two RCMP investigators about the allegations. CBC News has obtained a redacted transcript of the interview. Hamilton raised allegations of, quote, Jaffer and Jurgis on tape partying with hookers and doing cocaine. and that not only does Helena tolerate Jaffer hanging out with escorts and prostitutes, but there's apparently video of her snorting cocaine off the breasts of a prostitute. Yeah. When Stephen Harper had MPs he wanted to get rid of, he would just casually mention, oh, yes, there are serious allegations. Hookers, prostitutes, women doing blow off other women's prostitutes' breasts. Because why not, right? This is the same government also that had the RCMP commissioner make allegations about Ralph Goodale, about giving inside or information on a different tax treatment to come on income trusts. Also, no evidence of that. This is also the party of In and Out, remember, that had to plead guilty in court to election finance cheating as well. But this party definitely doesn't have a reputation for smearing even its own when they want to get rid of them. This stuff is in the DNA of this party. These are not Tories, these are conservatives. Smearing, alleging associations with prostitutes, alleging cocaine use. Right? Cheating, committing crimes, having to plead guilty in court to them. This is in the DNA of this party. Since inception. These behaviors that we're seeing in 2025 were there in 2010. The last time this party had a one-man band, party of one leader, that used message discipline, press control, threats, and intimidation to keep caucus in line. These are not suddenly new behaviors. Oh my God, I can't believe the conservatives would do that. There's no history of this whatsoever in this party. Yeah, there is. The very first election it won, it had to plead guilty to having committed crimes in order to achieve the victory. This party is not so much a party as it is a racket, if one was to be kind. A month after Hamilton spoke to the RCMP, Snowdy, appearing before Parliament committee, said under oath that he had no evidence or information with respect to the conduct of Mr. Sturgis in possession or my knowledge, but the Snowdy report said that if you have no evidence of cocaine use and association with prostitutes and all that kind of stuff, why is it in your report? How did Stephen Harper believe that there were serious allegations? They just hired somebody that was willing to say something. This is who they are. This is who they are. Smear campaigns, character assassination, hiring private investigators to trail your own MPs. Intimidation, threats, criminality. This is embedded in the DNA of this party. This political party should not even exist. It is not a serious vehicle for governance. These are not new behaviors. These are behaviors that us as Canadians have been watching for nearly 2 decades now. And we're paying them to do this. This is a party that should be delisted. Hopefully, this is the beginning of a split. This party finds itself in political exile for quite a while. Hopefully, breaks out some brooms, some mops, a metric shit ton of disinfectant and Javix, and cleans itself up. Or that another new party is created somehow. Hopefully one that actually would like to seriously provide some governance rather than just be a circus or a frat house. And if you think the frat house thing is new, that's not new either. Not in this movement. Remember in Alberta, the days of Jason Kenney when he was leader? The antics in the legislature in Alberta? Wasn't there a guy who drank a can of beer and crushed it? Parties during COVID held at the Sky Palace? This frat boy stuff is also not new. Now, I could understand that some people are saying, well, we can't really believe Chris D'Entremont up until a couple of hours ago. He was a conservative too. Yeah, but you know what? When two people are telling two different tales of the story, you've got to believe someone. Both may be lying, but one side is telling more truth than the other. And again, as Brad Levine asked, based on everything you know to be true about the players involved, what is more likely? That upon finding out news that someone was going to defect, that the Conservatives were calm and reasonable and measured and behaved completely appropriately and professionally, when they can't do that on a normal given weekday, or that a member, now former member of the party, who's been in politics and a public figure for 22 years and very well known to his community, who has never made news for any behavior of this type ever in his entire political career, suddenly became an entirely different person. Suddenly started adopting behaviors that are the 100-degree opposite of everything we've known about them in public for 22 consecutive years. Because you'd think somewhere in 22 years, if someone truly was that type of person, they would have slipped up sometime before now. I don't know. Actually, I do know. I don't know for a fact because, as Brad Levine says, he's not in the room. But if past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior, and we look at the past behavior of Andrew Scheer, Chris Workington, and the Conservative Party of Canada, and the past behavior of Chris D'Entremont, and we compare it to what's being alleged now, based on what I do know to be true, it's very clear to me who I believe more and who I believe less. It's not even a contest. But it is what it is, and we will see. Because again, we are in constituency week, and it's only Wednesday. Now, there have been some questions. One, hopefully, have this somewhere. Let's take a look here. I might not have that. Oh, there we go. Is this it? Why can it not? Well, that's really weird. Okay, let's try that again. I'm having that says your message, the thing cannot be displayed at this time, and I'm like, why the hell not? Okay. This is. I need. Why do I need to sign in? Okay. Apparently, I need to sign in to my own email. I take my notes in the draft function. So yeah, this is really weird. Okay, well, I'm not going to do that now because there's no time. So I will save that for tomorrow's show. But the point that I was going to make had to do with the timing of when there would be potentially another defection. And there has been some speculation among the pundits that if there wasn't something happening during this constituency week, to look, of course, for maximum impact, for someone to be doing something on the 17th, which is, I believe, to be the day that there's going to be a big vote on the budget in the House of Commons. That on the 17th of November, that might be a very, very good day for it to happen. And if you're wondering from where and from where and from when and where could the next defection come from, the 17th looks like is a date that a lot of, like I said, these insiders have in mind, and that the next one could potentially come either from an Ontario conservative, because as you know, Doug Ford conservatives are not the same thing as Pierre Poilièvre conservatives, and Doug Ford has no time for Pierre Poilièvre. So there might be some federal conservatives in Ontario that are more of the Doug Ford variety than the Pierre Poilièvre variety, more of the Corey Tenike variety than the Jenny Byrne variety. Who might be uncomfortable with what's going on, or even worse for the party, from Quebec. Because the Conservatives don't have a lot of seats in Quebec. They have a little stronghold around Quebec City, and a couple of other places, but I think they have about 12 seats. And if Pierre Poilièvre went into that leadership review, having lost a seat from Quebec as well, that would certainly harm his chances. So, according to the people that got their ear on the ground, November 17th, and potentially an MP from Ontario or Quebec. That's the buzz. I guess we'll see. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us and share a little bit of yourself when you do, why it is our content resonates with you. Because when you write, it is more likely that people will click on it if they see somebody they know and whose opinion they respect specifically say, hey, I watched this and this is worth your time. So thank you for all your help. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like us to help you, if you would like us to help you, we have our pod page, thanks to the Ray Girl. And if you scan this QR code that will appear, it will bring you right there. And if you go If you can't scan the QR code, you go to podpage.com/thetruenortheagerbeaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. Click subscribe, and when we have something fresh off the podcast bandwidth, it comes directly to you, and then you can pop us in your ears, take us with you, and go take on the day and still remain informed. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us, because we would definitely appreciate your help, one of the ways you can do that is by going to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page and smashing with our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. And if you're watching live, remember, if you smash now, you don't have to remember to do it before you leave. So go over there and have a little fun. Kids, Cassie, and Elaine will definitely approve. Smash away. It helps us with the algorithm, and our numbers go up. It makes us happy, and our numbers went up today with 27,100 subscribers I saw on the count. So yay, yay, yay. Thank you so much for all the people who are joining us. I really, really appreciate you being here. Now, kits and cubs, if you would like to support us in yet another way, say financial, because you like our content, it resonates with you, and you would like to encourage us to do more because you know we incur some costs to bring the show to you, we would be grateful for that type of assistance as well. And to that end, we have the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund, which can be found at our coffee page. That QR code that just appeared would bring you right there. And if you would be so kind as to make a donation there, it would make such that we would be very ably assisted in our effort to keep our beaver moist. Because a moist beaver is a happy beaver. And I really like being happy. So moisten me, damn fam. I'm just pulling your leg. But your donations are definitely appreciated. So thank you very much for everything that you do for us. And remember, we have, of course, a super chat, and we have memberships on our YouTube page. And we are very grateful for all of you who help us that way. Every little bit that you are able to contribute helps. There's no amount too small. So please, if you are able, we are very, very grateful. And if you are not able, kids and cubs, please do not worry, because the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that matter the most to us, and we love to hear from you. So please write to us, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, and let us know what you think about the show, or give us some guest suggestions, or hey, like we mentioned, right? We like hearing when good things happen to good people. And that would be you, members of our damn fam. So if you have good news, if you're celebrating anything, to have an achievement, a milestone, if you're creative, right? Art, all that kind of stuff, send that to us. We want to know what you're up to. We want to know what you're doing. We want to know what you're proud of. We want to know what brings you joy. So share all that with us. And of course, if you're, I have to remind you, if you're cooking something or eating something that's delicious, let us know what it is, because if you post it to our socials with the hashtag #KidsWhoCook, that helps a lot. I just love food, and sometimes it gives me ideas. So I like to know what it is that you're eating. That's sort of just a personal little hobby of mine. So there you go, kids and cubs. Lots of ways to interact with us. Of course, we also have the Instagram and the Family Damn Fam Discord as well out there. So lots of things for you to join to keep the conversation going and keep the Damn Fam vibes going after the show ends every day. And thank you for all you do to keep that going. Now, kids and cubs, if you do want to donate, but you're doing the Buy Canadian patriotic thing, and yay you for doing that, well then, hey, kids and cubs, have we got a deal for you? Because True North Eager Beaver at gmail.com, that email address is the same one you can use to send a direct transfer bank to bank. There are no US tech bros that get a cut of your money, and we get 100% of it, which means your donation goes further. Thank you so much for everybody who does make a contribution via that method. All right. Because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs, remember House of Commons petition number E6821 or E-6821 about media ownership in Canada to urge our MPs to pass a bill that would make it such that Canadian media is by Canadians, for Canadians, and in the best interests of Canadians. Yes, kids and cubs, that's very important. So please put your signature on that one. We have 5,969 signatures on that one so far. And of course, the other one, because the date of this petition is it's closing soon in 15 days. So if you haven't signed yet, please get your signature in here. This one is House of Commons petition E-6679, and that is to encourage our MPs to pass a bill that would have consequences for MPs who deliberately spread misinformation. And we had an interview with Mr. Fed Sanchez about that. If you haven't checked that out, please go and look at it. There's lots of information about petitions, how they work, how to start one. If you want to start one, how you could go about it, and information as well, civics information about who can sign petitions and all that good stuff. And it's a very engaging interview. Mr. Sanchez is a wonderful man, so and a very engaging speaker. So yeah, I'm sure it will be very entertaining and informative as well if you haven't seen it yet. All right, kids and cubs, it's time for words of wisdom. And I don't know if I have any right now, but let's see if I'm thinking through the stories of the day here. I'm going to go back to Remembrance Day. And even though the day has come and gone, it's still, it's still the entire week for this. And let's, the honor in this, the sacrifice that we honor and why we honor it, that mood, that vibe. Let's keep that in our hearts and go forward today and the rest of the week with that intention. We should do that every day. We should do that every day. We should be so grateful for what it is that we have in this nation because it was almost taken away from us. I say it every year, but one of the reasons I particularly love Remembrance Day is because, of course, it happens to fall on my anniversary. And we celebrate, right? People that gave all so that we could choose our own path. There was a time where there were other nations that would wanted to impose upon us what our path was going to be. And when we're talking about World War II in particular, the path that some wanted us to go down was not a good one. And we said no, and we refused it. We refused it. We rejected it. We wanted to choose our own, and we have. And we have become the country that we are today, the country in which someone like me can celebrate 13 anniversaries with my Beaver sweetie. I have that right because people fought for us to remain on our own path, and this is the path that we've chosen. And I am keenly aware that I live in a world in which the overwhelming majority of the countries that exist today on this orb we all live on are countries in which I would not be able to have 13 anniversaries with a Beaver sweetie, let alone have a Beaver sweetie, and in a certain number of them, me even expressing the desire to want a Beaver sweetie could result in my life being ended. So yeah, I'm damn grateful. Damn grateful. And one of the ways to show that gratitude is to do everything in our power, to ensure that the road we have already said, no, thank you, we do not want to go down, is not a road that we allow anybody to drag us down or attempt to even think to drag us down in 2025. So those are my words of wisdom. Let's keep that intentionality in our hearts. Okay. Could be a tough world out there, kids and cubs. So please be kind to and gentle with yourselves. And now it's audience participation time. So kids and cubs, at the count of 3, could I please ask you to say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, and some anniversary cheer in there too. I heard you, kids and cubs. I heard you. I felt it, the feeling. Ooh, I can't resist. I have to say yes. And here it is. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs, before we go, because yesterday was Remembrance Day, a little focus on Canadians who make us proud. In the opening segment, when they were doing a recap of the day, they mentioned a certain veteran named Ed Stafford. Ed Stafford is a 104-year-old Second World War veteran and member of the Governor General's House Guards. And he spent Remembrance Day at the York Cemetery in Toronto, where he has been going for the last 5 years. He says that the first thing he thinks about every November 11th is all the guys who didn't make it. And there was a quick little interview with him yesterday. And I thought if you didn't see it, that more people should see this. So kids and cubs, a Canadian that makes us very, very, very proud, Mr. Ed Stafford.
We're seeing so many young faces in the crowd today. This is an important part of Remembrance because, of course, all these men and women from wars past were very young themselves when they had the hardest days of their lives. One person in particular who knows that very well is a guest of our friend Lisa Shing, who's at the York Cemetery in Toronto. Lisa?
Hi there, Adrian. You're right. I am joined by Ed Stafford, a World War II veteran. He is 104 years old and also a member of the Governor General's Horse Guard. Ed, thank you so much for coming out today and joining me.
It's nice to be here.
You have come to York Cemetery for at least the last 5 years for Remembrance Day.
Yes.
Why is that important to you?
It's important because it's nice to see everyone, and it's it's a thing to do on this particular day. Yeah.
When you wake up on Remembrance Day like this one, what goes through your mind? What do you think about?
Well, all the guys that didn't make it, of course. That's the first thing. I know so many of them, and it's good to honor them at least once a year, you know.
And Ed, do you have any?
Oh, a lot of them. Some of them are not so nice, you know. like the time that 16 of our guys got killed in one explosion. And I took the, I wasn't in it, but I took the pottery up there afterwards, and I saw all my friends. I had been in B Squadron, so I knew a lot of them, and to see them all laying on the ground, sewn up in a blanket, it was devastating, to say the least. But
It must have been.
it's of course there were other things, but that's I think that's the one that I remember the most.
And you actually went back many years later in 2019 to remember them with young and old.
Yes, yes. Accompanied by my daughter, and we visited many of the places that we had been before, and we had one time we just had the regiment, and it was great on that one. That was just, one of the better ones. Yeah.
Well, Ed, thank you so much for your time today. Adrian, Ed Stafford, 104 years old, a member of the Governor General's Horse Guard, a World War II veteran, here to attend the Remembrance Day ceremony at York Cemetery in Northern Ontario. Northern Toronto, I should say.
You could be forgiven for thinking it's Northern Ontario with the snow. And we are all big Ed Stafford fans over here. Please give him our love, and thank you, Lisa. I can tell you a story about Ed Stafford.
I will.
He is someone who often says the name Herbie Stitt. You will hear Ed say that name often because Herbie was one of his great friends who survived a horrific battle and then died one of those terrible deaths of war. He was run over by a truck while he was sleeping, after surviving a horrific battle. And Ed always talks about Herbie because, again, these veterans want people to keep saying the names of their buddies.
So they're kits and cubs. That moment particularly touched me because, as you know, a lot of these men who were there at the time don't talk out loud about the worst that they've seen. And Ed Stafford was able to do that and did do that for us in this interview. And I don't know. Knowing myself and my constitution, I don't know how I could have been able to handle that and move on and carry forward. But then again, that's life, right? The world doesn't stop. It's a Reba, oh my God, I'm quoting Reba McEntire. The world doesn't stop for our broken hearts. So, yeah, just, war is horrible. And that's why we remember. So hopefully we don't have to do it again. All right, kids and cubs, I'm off. See you tomorrow. Amour et bisous.